All right. Well, hello and welcome to another episode of the Imperfect Men's Club podcast. My name is Mark Aylward, and I'm here with my friend and colleague, Jim Gurley. And Jim and I were just talking about a few different things as we do in the pregame, as I like to say. It gives us energy and focus and keeps our eye on the ball. It's really a pleasant exercise pre-podcast. But we talked about a couple different things, but one of the things that came up that we're going to talk about today is stems from an experience that Jim had recently at a friend's wedding, and and it's about the idea of being coachable and referable. And rather than assume everyone knows what we mean by that, we're going to get into it in a little bit of detail. But I think it maps out to our wheel nicely, Jim, as it always does. And if you want, you can certainly take people around the wheel at any time. But why don't I'll throw the baton back to you and say, tell us about this wedding and who this kid was and why those topics came up. That context would be very interesting.
Yeah, Mark. As we always talk about it on every episode, it starts off with these five areas of our life, and number one in the centers are self awareness. So this was at a wedding, and the wedding is definitely a time of reflection, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, whether you're the friend, parent, you see all the different generations, right? And typically, if somebody's getting married, this is their first marriage there, so they were in their 30s. But you see the 30-year-olds and you see the 40-year-olds and the 50-year-olds and the 60-year-olds, the 70-year-olds, and the 80-year-olds and the 90-year-olds sometimes, right? And even the 10-year-olds. And it was just a perspective because this particular wedding was one of my Hayward High football alumni. That same class, by the way, the same class that I've talked about before when I first got involved.
Mm-hmm.
The the groom of the wedding was in that same class. So just a few years ago, I'm gonna obviously leave his name out, but he walked up to me in a game, probably 5 years ago now or so. His father had passed away, so he had to come. He was living in Europe, and he came back, and then COVID hit. So then he was kind of stuck here to some degree. But he was also, I think, at that stage in his life where, okay, I'm an American. I'm going to restart my life in America. And pretty impressive guy. I could tell you he spoke 5 languages fluently.
Wow.
Yeah. And I saw him do it. It was remarkable to see somebody do that, just flip from all those different languages, French, Spanish, Italian. It was remarkable. But so he came up to me on the sidelines and said, "Hey, good to see you." And he said, "I'm interested in getting in the financial service business." And I said, "Well," I said, "that's something I'm a little bit of familiar with. My wife was in that business, or at the time, I think she still was in the business for 3 or 4 decades." And I said, "Yeah, if that's something you're interested in, I can." I think I can help you out. So this around COVID hits. He does apply for an internship, doesn't get it, but he doesn't give up, and he takes a job, a sales job, hard sales job, but he stays with it. So he's persistent, and then ultimately he gets this apprenticeship, and then gets hired. And so the table I was sitting at was the owner of the agency, really good guy. I've known him for years. And we were talking. I said, "Hey, Rod, I just want to let you know how much I appreciate you, helping Michael out because, this is a day of celebration, and he's really manifested himself a life that he really wanted." And I said, "Rod, and I'm reflecting. I realized certain people are coachable and some aren't. And the ones that are not coachable, um, they have a hard time because they just can't take instructions, right? And it's kind of there's a sports analogy of that as well, right? I remember in playing sports, some players were coachable, some weren't. And I said, but the other difference between you have to be coachable. That's just kind of a must. but you also have to be referable. And he was referable because he was persistent, because I saw something in him that other people didn't see. And then my relationship was valuable to obviously this referral, because I just knew he had some talent that was undiscovered, and it's, it's obviously working out pretty well. But he's also persistent. So I think it's three. It's all three. It's not just one. And then I started again reflecting again. Even to this day, I try to be coachable. Even when no matter what I'm doing, even whatever the task is, if there's something I don't know, I want to be able to be told how to do it better. But ultimately, what I'm thriving to do is to position myself where somebody does refer me. It's because they trust me, but it's not easy to be referable, right? You have to do a lot of little things in order to be referable. And so that was something. And then persistency, because I think most people do wear out. They wear out, they give up, they get discouraged. And this particular individual did all three. And as a result, I think he's going to have a very successful career and a very good life. So
yeah, it's interesting. Well, thanks for the story. You've got so many good stories connected to the people that have played on that football team over the course of many, many years.
Yeah.
And it's team sports is such a good storytelling treasure trove, isn't it?
Yeah.
But as you well know, in my business, I needed everyone that I interacted with on the candidate side to be coachable and referable, because I was coaching them and then I would
Yeah,
refer them.
absolutely. Yeah.
And the other thing that's funny, I don't know why it popped into my head, but many years ago, when my middle daughter was contemplating what she wanted to do professionally and wasn't sure, she said, "Can I come into your office and talk to you about recruiting? Because I've seen you be successful for so long and have so much fun doing it that I think I might want to know more about it." And I remember this like it was yesterday, and it might have been 10 years ago. And we sat down for 2 hours, Jim, and I interviewed
How
people
old was she, Mark?
she was probably 20, 21, something like that. And
Interesting.
so maybe
So
eight,
just
9
right out
years
of
ago.
college, just
Yeah,
finishing
just
college.
out of college.
Yeah.
She was a fashion design marketing major, and she loves fashion and she loves art. But she couldn't negotiate connecting dots into any job that really appealed to her. And I think as she grew more deeply into nutrition, that became her calling, but she wasn't sure at this point. So I said, "Come on in." And I remember that 2 hours. When I was done, I said, "That's the best interview that I've ever conducted in my life. You asked so many good questions, honey." And she was so coachable. And I have spent my entire life referring her, because she always does what she says she's going to do. And
Interesting.
so this is no disrespect to my other two kids. They're quite skilled in these areas as well. But this one just kind of stuck with me. But at the end of the 2 hours, you know what she said to me? "I don't want to be a recruiter."
Good for her. Yeah. Yeah. You're talking about Caroline?
No, Hannah.
Hannah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Hannah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
'Cause I guess
Yeah.
I
I
don't know Hannah,
remember
but
it.
I know Caroline. Yeah.
And I remember it so much because, and you do this with kids all the time. You've done it all your whole life, but it's like you start asking, somebody wants your help, and you start asking them questions.
Yep.
And it's very quickly you can find out whether they're coachable or not, because some kids are looking at their cell phones, some kids are looking away, some kids are you paying attention to me? Like, why would I waste my time anymore with you if you're not even going to pay attention to me?
Yeah.
I get very,
Yeah.
I get very
Yeah.
intolerant of that very quickly. And
Right. There you go. As an example. That's not a referable
no,
person.
no,
Just because, again, that maybe they were coachable, but they weren't referable, because why would you refer to somebody that they can't even give you their time and their attention, right? You can't,
well,
they're not referable.
and I think that, I have a good friend, that is, you got friends, I'm sure, that they have, like, if you require 10 good qualities, they have 9 of them, and you kind of forgive them for the one they don't have. And he can't do lunch without looking at his phone.
Yeah.
So I don't really go to lunch much anymore with him. And I do enjoy his company, and he's a very generous guy, very kind guy,
Yeah.
bright guy. But that I would probably not refer him,
Interesting.
maybe even unconsciously. Like I
Yeah.
would like to think that I would, but I would think to myself, he might not do what he said he was going to do, or he might,
Yeah.
he might not bring his full attention to what it is that I'm introducing him to. And you make those decisions, or I make those decisions. I don't vocalize those decisions. I don't tell people I wouldn't do something like that. But I think we all do that. If you're not coachable and you're not referable, people are not referring you to opportunities and other people that they otherwise would, and you don't even know about it. Right.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Now this is coming full circle on me. That this started off because somebody made the comment, it's all about who you know. And sure that it does help to know somebody that knows somebody, right? But it's not just who you know. In fact, I think that's, now I think about it, it was kind of, that was the conversation. I think he had said something like, well, it helps that he knew, and he was obviously referring to my wife. And then we were laughing, right? This was like a kind of a fun conversation. I said, yeah, there's no question it helped that he knew somebody, but he didn't just know somebody. He had to be coachable, and he had to be referable,
yep.
and he had to be persistent, because that's what it takes, right? And if you have all those three, so yeah, I'm kind of glad we've got to reset this up. It's not just who you know. It's once you know somebody, you still have to be coachable, you still have to be referable, and you still have to be persistent enough to remind them that you want this, that this means something to you.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. I think there's also a group of people, and this is not a group that I would want to be a member of. I'll make that clear. That do get referred because of, let's just say, for example, the influence of their father. Their father's a
mm-hmm.
judge,
Yep.
and but the kid's a spoiled brat,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And he gets referred to a summer job, but the guy that he gets referred to owes the judge a favor. And so the guy begrudgingly hires the kid, and he gives him $15 an hour to mow lawns for the summer. And then he never asks him back because he's not a good worker, and he's not
Yep.
referable, and he doesn't
Yeah.
listen. He's not coachable. So there's probably a good bit that's pure nepotism. That has nothing to do with being coachable or referable. It's just like families doing favors for other families, or rich guys doing favors. That's kind of a kind of an icky world, I think. But
It may be icky, but I've had family members ask
yep.
For a referral, and like you said, I won't maybe come out and completely tell them. But I will, no, just because you're a family member or a friend of a friend, absolutely not. I will not just refer them. I'll
No.
say, hey, well, let's go have lunch, or let's spend some time together. I think I shared the story with you. This is maybe last year, about another kid asked for some help, and I said, yeah, hey, but if you want to get in, let's just get a better idea of what you really want before I refer you. And I set up every Saturday at 10 o'clock, we were going to have a conversation. And he he forgets the first one. He's late to the second one. And the third one, he calls me from his from a breakfast shop or something like that. And then I just told him, I said, hey, I'm really sorry. His name was Kyle. I said, Sal, I'm really sorry, man. We're not going to be meeting again, because if you can't make 3 meetings with me and I'm helping you out just to help you out, you're not referable.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
And there's nothing's going to change that. So that is an example. But these little things, Mark, they add up to be big things in life. They really do. And,
big time. Big time. No, I think that, I used to walk out of the door. My father would say, like, you got the L word reputation in your hands. Treat it kindly today, and your reputation is everything. And I think that, in what I did for a living for a long time, and still do on a different level, is, coach people up and then refer them to companies for interviews, and hopefully place them. So, yeah, I mean, it's the person that you just described before you mentioned this kid. It wasn't an actual human being. It was just a concept of family members asking for things, but you know they're not referable. So what I would say to somebody like that, because I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, I keep my eyes and ears open with no intent, with no intention of keeping my eyes and ears open. So,
Yeah.
and I
So I have
think
a
people,
question for you, Mark, on this. Let's kind of break this down again, because this is what you do. But give me an example. Give me an example of somebody that is coachable, and then give me some examples of somebody that's not coachable based on your professional experiences. And I'll come in on some other stuff, professional, not professional. But yeah, just break this down, and then we'll move on to referable. But
well, there's a couple of things in the interview process that I learned early on and kind of polished over the years are bringing up the concept of money, and then in addition to money, anything that I usually refer to as self-serving, and that would be work hours, remote work, vacation benefits, for anything that's self-serving, anything that you're going to get from the company if they select you. You never bring that up. You only respond when the other person brings it up, because then you're self-serving if you bring it up, right?
interesting. So
And
you will tell your client that, and
I'll tell my candidate that.
I'm sorry, that's what I meant to say. You're a candidate.
Yep.
That's how you refer to it. Uh, you would tell them that in advance, and
Oh
then
yeah.
out of 10 times, how many would blow it?
5.
Is that right?
Yeah, yeah. And here's another thing at the tail end of the interview, because
I didn't expect 5. I really didn't. But
people, yeah, Jim, when I know this stuff so well, and I've seen it work and not work so many times that it's like embedded in my DNA. I can literally just look at somebody and say, I even tell people, and I tell this story to other people, and they walk in and they bring up money and none of those people get hired, or maybe 1 out of 10. They have to overcome a lot of other things. And then the other piece of that, yeah, it's crazy.
It's crazy is right, because like you said, you're giving them the answers to the questions, to the test, and they're not coachable.
Not at all. Not at all. But the irony is they haven't really given me any indication yet that they aren't coachable. I have to find out by going, like, I'm in
After
practice.
the fact.
I'm in the gym practicing, but when they get into the game, how different those two experiences are, practice and a game,
Oh yeah.
And so, yeah, I understand why people drop that ball, but it still astounds me when they do. And the other piece of the interview that really always kills me is, how many people say, have they gotten back to you yet? When should I follow up with them? Should I call them? Should I send them a note? I'm like, look, I tell you in the prep, when the interview is concluding and you like them and you think they like you, and this is something that you think you want to do, those are all prerequisites, because if they're not, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You say to him, hey, I just want to let you know, I really have enjoyed my time. I really appreciate your time, and I would love to come work for you. And I also think I could bring a lot to the table. I just want to let you know, if I'm lucky enough, I would love to get the job. And then you listen to the response, because most people don't do that. And if there's a tie, the person that does that wins, right?
Yeah.
Because people like appreciation and flattery. And so the way that you conclude is say, okay, well, I know you're real busy and I don't want to put any pressure on you at all. That's not my intention. But if you don't know yet when you might be finished with the process, how about if I don't hear from you by Tuesday next week by midday, I'll call you around 4:00 in the afternoon. Does that work for you? And now you have them in a box. Most people will say, yeah, sure, that's fine. And now you're not pestering them. You'll never feel like you're pestering them because you ask permission
And
to do that.
how many out of 10 would do that?
2, because to most people, that feels a little aggressive, right? But to your point about persistence, my personal opinion is anybody that I would want to go work for, right, is going to appreciate my persistence, because they were persistent to get where they are, right?
Yeah.
And so that's I could talk about that topic for a week.
Yeah, no, it's good stuff. And I'll throw something in there again, whether it's job recruiting but I think it's more psychology. It applies to everything. It's when you mentioned your daughter, I remember having the same conversation with my son when he was right out of college, after he was starting to apply for jobs, and also my daughter. And the the best advice I ever gave them, I'll take credit for this because it works. And they both actually did it, so that they are coachable and then obviously turned out to be referable, was to ask questions. Just turn everything into a question
Mm-hmm.
and make it about them. Make sure that they're talking more than you're talking, a lot
Mm-hmm.
more, like preferably 80-20, right?
Yep.
They're talking 80% of the time, and you're just dropping really good questions that
100%.
demonstrates you're listening to them, so they'll talk more. and
Mm-hmm.
and it doesn't even matter what they say. Just
Yeah.
get them to talk
Yep.
about themselves or their company or their product, and they will like you. I promise you, they will like you more if they're talking more about
No,
themselves.
I couldn't agree with you more about that. I think questions are the way to start conversations, and
Yep.
the smartest people in the room are the ones you don't hear much from.
Yeah.
The questions also, at least in my opinion and my experience, is you can't, you got to ask open-ended questions. You can't ask questions that could be answered with a yes or a no. You just
Yeah.
can't. Like, it's and the more you ask, I think that's also a way to communicate with people with whom you disagree. It's
Yeah.
really a wonderful way to, because you're not making an accusation, you're asking a
Right.
question. You're not
Yeah.
taking a stance, you're asking a question.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a huge part of my preparation. So good on you. And when you see them do it and you see them light up because it worked, that's
Mm-hmm.
a good feeling. Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's again, whether you're being paid for it, maybe in your case as a profession, but even if you're just, we get satisfaction, we as in this stage in our life, and that's what's, again, it was a gratifying experience at this wedding, because I saw this. He wasn't a kid, but he came again. He lost his father, so he was still going through a difficult stage. He was trying to make a life for himself. He wanted a career. He wanted a wife. He wanted a family. He also happens to be very Catholic, or very, his faith is very important to him. He stayed true to that,
Mm-hmm.
and he manifested this beautiful life. It was kind of cool too, because his bride was from Brazil, so the ceremony was in Portuguese, and then well, it was both English and Portuguese, so he was speaking in both languages, which was kind of cool, right?
I love that. I love
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
Yeah. I think
it added a
they,
lot of flavor to the wedding.
I bet.
And
I
yeah.
bet. Yeah.
and,
The other
and
thing that, to the coachable and referable concept, I think this is a lifelong pursuit. I don't think that you
yes, yes,
become coachable and referable and all of a sudden you stop working on those skills. I don't think you can get too good at that. And I
yeah,
think that as I look back on my career and you look back on yours and we look forward and we think about the things that we're doing now, I find I can see the things I've learned from you, and I see when you get something from me that would classify as something learned, or just a different way of thinking about something, or a different way of saying something, which are both very powerful things, by the way. Thinking differently and saying something differently is, there's a way to say things and a when to say things. But and then we talk
yeah,
about mentorship and we talk about agency, and this is all, you don't get to benefit from any of that unless you're coachable and referable.
yeah,
And
yeah.
I want to be more coachable and referable tomorrow than I am today.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm gonna run with that a little bit more, because this is super important what you're saying. The coachable thing goes beyond just being coachable. I'll give you an example. This is uh, I'm working with a patent attorney, and this is a new patent attorney for a new patent, right? So this will be my I have five, but this is a completely new one, because it'll be number six if it gets issued, but who knows? But this is a project 10 years in the works, right? It's more on a technology and AI platform. I don't want to bore you with all the particulars, but so picking the right patent attorney is super important, right? Because you're gonna give this guy everything that you have put together for close to 10 years, and hope that they write the patent in the right way, or it's a provisional patent. So but they have to take all that information and then turn it into a document. So it's a super important relationship when you're doing this, and they're super expensive. But anyway, where I'm going with it is, we had our first call last week, and I'd met him once before, and I said, "Hey, I'm going to work hard to be a really good client. I want to be your best client." And so I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions. I want to know your process. I'm going to show you what I have before we even decide to start working together, right before we have a letter of engagement, because I've noticed that there's such thing as bad clients, and really good, anybody that's very good at what they do. If you're a really good patent attorney or a good accountant or a good anything, you want good clients, right? You don't need to take the shit clients because they're not worth it. So it applies to everything in life. Even though I'm going to pay him a lot of money, I want to be a really, really good client. So I showed him all my mind maps and my, what is, hey, can you work with this? Like, I turned it into an interview both ways.
Mm-hmm.
And I know, because I've made the mistakes of not doing that in the past. I know that if that relationship starts off right, it'll be a win-win, right? Everything. You remove the friction, everything just moves faster and better, and the ideas, and there's the synergy in that. So that's an example of, I'm
Yeah, it's a
asking
great,
him, like,
yeah, it's a great point. I think it makes me think of so many things, but one immediate, I'm contemplating bringing my car into a different
yeah,
shop because the shop that I've historically gone to is, I think they changed ownership.
uh-huh,
Something changed, and the vibe I get is I don't
yep,
think they're telling me the truth about everything, and
that's right,
and I don't have the capability of really ever knowing because I'm not a mechanic and I don't have any interest in being a mechanic, but I know people, and I just got a bad vibe, and I'm not going back to them. So
yep,
I got a flyer from a new place. I've been getting them, and I'm not just going to drop my car off. I'm going to go over and I'm going to ask to speak to the owner of the company,
yeah,
and then I'm going to do exactly what you just did. It'll
yeah,
be on different topics, but I want
yeah,
to know how you feel about me. I want to know how interested you are and how you go about, looking over my car, what you look
yeah.
for, you know,
So
uh, the,
something that you said, I think, is also very important, is that he knows a lot more about cars than you do, right? That's why
yeah,
and same with
that's why
this
I pay
patent
him.
attorney. He knows a lot more about filing a working with the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office than I do, even though I know enough to know I don't know it all, and I need to hire somebody better. So I do think what you said is important, Mark, in that you're giving them the respect they deserve, and the assumption is that they're gonna coach you a little bit along the way, so you can give them information and they'll have a better outcome. But I think that's a really good example, whether it's your auto mechanic or even a gardener. I've referred my gardener to everybody in my neighborhood, and he does everybody's lawn now, right? The guy never lets me down.
Yeah.
Never.
Yeah.
He's referable. Why
Yeah.
is he referable? Because he's persistently consistent. There's this guy never lets anybody down. I can refer him. Same
Yeah.
with
It's,
my tree guy. It's
just the stories that you've told me about your life in general. I think you've made a very good point of being coachable, being referable, and
mm,
raising that bar on everyone you interact with, or
mm,
spending less time with them and eventually maybe parting ways. And I kind of do the same thing. It's
yeah.
like, I think it's not just good it's good for everyone.
Absolutely. It's
Whoever's
good
in
for
that
everyone.
communication benefits from that exercise,
Yeah,
you know?
you're right. It just makes life better. It removes the friction, and then the money isn't as important. The money just flows, right? You're not
Yeah.
fighting
And
over
when,
money. You're
yeah,
not
yeah,
fighting over time. You're a little more forgiving about the time, because, and so are they. It's
yeah.
just it's like you said, it's just very different. It removes the tension that
It does.
it.
And when I've referred people, particularly in my job,
Mhm,
the most satisfying thing beyond appreciation from the candidate is getting a call from the client or following up with the client,
mhm.
30, 60, 90 days in, saying, how's it going? And having them go, this is my best guy yet, dude. You knocked the cover off the ball with this guy. And I was
That's got
like,
to feel good, right?
oh, it's awesome. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah,
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 it's awesome. So I
yeah.
think that, kind of to maybe move in the direction of wrapping up. But if you've got other stories that are popping up, to have at it, because I think this is a great topic. Um, I think that what I said earlier, I think that everybody listening is like, if you're a dad, this is weapons for your kids, right? And
Mhm.
if you're a dad or you're not a dad, you're probably thinking of ideas where you can lay out this concept in
Mhm.
areas of your life and go, I can make that better. Or I
Mhm.
can. It's kind of like I'm thinking about even a marriage or a relationship between two people. If you bring that kind of curiosity and concern and care, and lead with that relationship gets richer.
Yeah, it
So
does.
I don't think
Yeah.
anybody's immune to benefiting from becoming more coachable and referable every day. I just don't.
Yeah. And I also like the way that you described the persistency. It's super important. We forget about it. And there's a way to go about it without being pushy, without being over aggressive. It's a skill, but
Yep.
you have to have some persistency because you have to demonstrate to the person that that's in the position of power that you care, because life
Yep.
is busy. There's a lot of people, and I used to use this term too. Life is a filtration system,
Hmm.
and it is. We're all
Yep.
being filtered out,
Yep. Yeah.
and
Consciously or unconsciously. Yeah. No,
that's right. That's right.
persistence is a great thing. And I think that the one of the cool thoughts about persistence is if you feel like it's pushy, you're probably either wrong in that feeling or you're not going about it the right way. It's got to
Mhm.
be one of the two things. Because if someone is politely persistent with me, then I know that whenever I need them, they're going to be persistent on my behalf, which I
Mhm.
like, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
So there's a lot of ways of looking at this stuff, a lot of ways. But no, that
Yeah.
was good stuff. You got anything you want to end with?
No, I think we covered it all.